Ahead on Q2, in the courtroom, one step closer to justice. A Billings teen changes his plea in the murder of a Rocky football player. We'll have the latest. Plus, exploding out of nowhere, a new thermal feature is discovered inside of Yellowstone National Park. We'll show you the amazing wonder. And
I'm Jonathan Amberian at the state capitol. Some of Montana's smallest school districts have raised concerns about a new state law that they believe is making it harder for them to maintain enrollment. I spoke to the lawmaker who was behind the bill about his response to those concerns.
The MTN 430 News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us on this Wednesday. It's good to be with you. I'm Don Hudson. A Billings teen enters a guilty plea to a charge of deliberate homicide in the shooting death of a Rocky Mountain football player. Sidney Cruz DeCrane Jr. admitted to shooting 18-year-old Chandler Stalcup on October 28th of 2023. Now, in exchange, prosecutors are recommending a sentence of 75 years in prison. DeCrane, who was 16 at the time, is being prosecuted as an adult and remains in jail. Now, the authorities say that Stalcup was an innocent victim who was simply picking up his friend after a late-night house party. According to the charging documents, a fight had broken out at that party with one of DeCrane's friends, Garrett Dorr III, being knocked out. Dorr, DeCrane, and others then began looking for the group, presumably seeking revenge. With Dorr driving, DeCrane then fired a bullet into the vehicle driven by Stalcup, striking him in the head. Dorr, who was 17 at the time, has already been sentenced to 60 years in prison with 10 suspended after pleading guilty to deliberate homicide by accountability.
And good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you'll be able to enjoy the unseasonably mild weather the last couple of days. For most areas, it's been nice to get the rain. We had some problematic rain around Sheridan County, but things are beginning to slowly and surely dry out. We still have a lot of clouds over most of eastern and central Montana, as well as northern Wyoming. And eventually we're going to lose those clouds, but there will be some areas of low clouds and patchy fog with all the moisture in the air tomorrow morning, where we get a little bit of clearing above. We're going to have a mostly sunny and warmer day on Thursday. We'll also have increasing clouds late Friday afternoon after a mostly sunny start to the day. It's going to be warmer too. Over a 7-day forecast in a few minutes.
A heavy rain in areas of Wyoming wreaking havoc in Sheridan County. Take a look at this, as more than a half-inch of rain led to this mudslide near Steamboat Point along US 14 last night. The Little Tongue River outside of Dayton also saw some flash flooding. The highway was closed from Dayton School to Elkview as a result of that flooding and all that mud. The Wyoming Department of Transportation says crews were out until after midnight clearing the roadway. Now, US 14 now open, but traffic may still be delayed from time to time. Geologists in Yellowstone National Park are marveling at their latest discovery. A new hot spring has appeared in one of the park's famous geyser basins. Now, scientists say this new thermal feature popped up in Norris Geyser Basin recently. Geologists were doing some routine maintenance at the time. They were just checking temperatures at the basin for really the first time since last fall. They say they stumbled across this new blue water spring. The pool is located in the Porcelain Basin, immediately west of a patch of trees that you might know as Tree Island. Researchers believe the hot spring points to hydrothermal explosions, and the water rests at a nice 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Demonstrates, they say, the spectrum of ways that features like this just keep evolving in the park. President Trump continues to criticize Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, but contrary to some reports, he has no immediate plans to fire him. Now, it comes as lawmakers fight to slash nearly $10 billion in previously approved funding for foreign aid and public broadcasting. Erica Brown has the latest, including a reaction from Capitol Hill.
During a White House meeting with the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Bahrain, President Trump confirmed CBS News reporting that he discussed firing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell with Republican lawmakers Tuesday.
I talked about the concept of fire him. I said, what do you think? Almost every one of them said I should.
The president has been hammering Powell for weeks for not lowering interest rates, but said he is not planning to fire him. Federal law says the chair can only be removed for cause, and Trump brought up a renovation project happening at the Fed.
I think it's highly unlikely, unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the $2.7 billion renovation.
Here on Capitol Hill, Republican Tom Tillis took to the Senate floor to warn of the fallout if the Fed chairman is removed before his term ends in May.
The consequence of firing a Fed chair just because political people don't agree with that economic decision will be to undermine the credibility of the United States going forward. And I would argue if it happens, you're going to see a pretty immediate response.
President Trump also downplayed the fallout from Republicans who are demanding more transparency regarding the investigation into child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
All it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook.
But calls for the release of the Epstein files are growing after a Justice Department and FBI review found no evidence of a client list or blackmail of powerful figures.
Bottom line, it needs to come out.
Senate lawmakers are working to hold a final vote tonight on a bill to slash about $9 billion in previously approved funding for foreign aid and public broadcasting. Erica Brown, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
You may see a bigger chunk of your paycheck going towards health care costs next year. Now, that is according to Mercer's survey on health and benefit strategies. It finds that more than half of employers say that they are planning to pass higher health care costs on to their workers. That means health insurance options could include higher deductibles or out-of-pocket maximums. Now, companies have seen rising health care costs over the past few years, and the amount an employer spends on health benefits is expected to jump nearly 6% this year. That would follow a rise of 4.5% last year. Back here in Montana, health officials have confirmed the first case of measles in Cascade County. Now, according to the Cascade City County Health Department, the case occurred in an adult who reportedly is vaccinated. Now, the health department says the individual does not know where they actually were exposed to the virus, but the patient is isolating at home. The health department has listed potential public exposure points and times on its website if you want to check that out. The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services, by the way, says there have been 26 reported measles cases across 5 counties with 2 hospitalizations since the first cases were reported back in April. In rural Montana, some community members have put the blame for small school enrollment challenges on a new state law that took effect last year. But that may only be really part of the story. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian hears from a legislator behind the law and has a closer look at what it actually did.
In 2023, the Montana legislature passed House Bill 203. It made it easier for parents to move students to a public school outside the district they live in. Supporters said it was a way to increase educational choice, but some opponents said it put Montana's smallest school districts at a big disadvantage. Representative David Beatty, a Republican from Hamilton, sponsored HB 203. He says before it was up to each district whether to allow students in their area to transfer to other districts, and he wanted a more consistent statewide policy. The bill also required districts to pay tuition to the district where their residents are now attending school.
The taxpayers within the school district where a child resides has an obligation to pay for part of that education.
In 2024, the Melrose School District in Silver Bow County went into non-operational status. In an open letter, district leaders specifically pointed to HB 203, saying it had contributed to students moving to other neighboring districts. I asked Beatty about arguments like that.
At the end of the day, I reject the idea that because I have a small district, in order to preserve that district itself, I'm going to deny a parent the opportunity to send their child where that child can best be educated.
One thing that is clear, there's been a trend of small rural schools dealing with low enrollment even before the passage of HB 203. Since 2016, the Montana Office of Public Instruction reports 15 rural school districts across the state have spent time in non-operational status, and 8 have closed permanently. As we showed you last month, the most recent school district to close its doors for good was Gold Creek in Powell County. It first went non-operational back in 2022.
I think it takes away part of our identity as a community.
Beatty says he thinks this trend has more to do with changing population patterns and changes in education than with his bill.
Well, I think parents have different expectations of what they want their children to do now, too. And once again, I think we should honor parents' preferences on this.
During this year's legislative session, lawmakers passed another of Beatty's bills, this one reducing the tuition that districts have to pay when a student moves to another district. Beatty believes that will reduce some of the pressures that people are concerned about. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.